So,
Okay.
hello, everybody. This is Stephen James here, and I am with Robert Dugoni, who is a New York Times bestselling author, number one international bestselling author of many books. He has a new novel out called Beyond Reasonable Doubt, and we're going to chat a little bit about it today. First of all, Bob, it's great to see you, and
Nice.
good to chat a little bit.
Yeah. No, always good to see you. Always good.
So, um, talk us through a little bit what led to this book. You've had an interesting career, different publishers, and you've landed now at the publisher where you're at a number of years ago. What was it that led you into a new direction in your writing? I think you've told me, with My Sister's Grave, which came out probably about 10 years ago, if I'm right. Uh,
2013.
yeah. So 2013. So at that point, you had sort of changed the way that you write, I think, and that sort of led to this whole new line of novels that you've been working on. What was the story with that?
Well, what led me to it was failure. Basically, I'd been writing the David Sloan legal thriller series, and I was told by the publisher after 5 books that they didn't want any more of that series, and so I had to come up with something new. And so I just started thinking in terms of a different character in a different genre. I decided to go in a more of a straight mystery, um, police procedural. And through various interviews and all the things that we do, I came up with this character named Tracy Crosswhite. Um, as far as the writing goes, I did change the way that I wrote in that I stopped trying to outline my books,
Hmm.
which I was never good at. Never was able to stick to an outline. And I really became more of an organic writer,
Yeah.
which was just putting myself in a position to let the story be told to me, and not try to be a self-editor in that first draft. Just get it down on paper, get it out. And it's worked. My books are widely read, and I'm very fortunate in that regard. I just finished the 11th book in the Tracy Crosswhite series. I just finished the third book in the Kira Dugan series. You have the second book,
Yeah.
Beyond Reasonable Doubt. And that whole genre came about because my editor at Thomas and Mercer, Gracie Doyle, said, "We'd really like you to do another courtroom
Hmm.
series. Are you up for it?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll absolutely do it, but I want to do it my way. I don't want it to be a straight courtroom drama.
Yeah.
I want there to be police procedural aspects, and I want there to be family dynamics."
Oh yeah.
And that's sort of how I came up with the whole family law firm. Kira's the youngest in this dysfunctional family. Her father's an alcoholic, and here we go.
No, that's pretty cool. So, you mentioned the Tracy Crosswhite series. You've also done some book club books, When the World Played Chess and The Extraordinary Life of Sam Hell, that have sold millions of copies, and you have fans all over the world who are excited about this new series, just about your books. One of the things that I really admire about you is that you you're not in a tiny little box like a lot of writers and even publishers, it seems like, kind of want to box up an author. Well, you write thrillers or suspense or something, but you've sort of gone a different direction. You've written suspense and legal thrillers and mysteries, and as well as historical, stories. How does that work for you? Do you find that readers are confused when they say, "Hey, wait, I thought that he was going to be writing another mystery, and all of a sudden he's got this other, historical story or something like that."
No, I've been really very, very fortunate. I write for Thomas and Mercer. That's who does my espionage, my legal thrillers, my mysteries. Lake Union does my literary novels. They're doing the new historical that's coming out, Hold Strong, 1947 World War II story that's really never been told, and they're really great about letting readers know that this is different, that the
Yeah.
genre that I'm in. And to be honest, since The Extraordinary Life of Sam Hell, which came out probably 5 years ago now, um, readers know that I write in various genres. And
Yeah.
so there's really not that much confusion or potential confusion anymore. Really, what I'm very fortunate is that most readers now they know that I just like to tell a good story,
There you
which
go.
I know you can appreciate that because your many books on the writing craft talks about the importance of story
Yeah.
and how a good story trumps structure. And that's what I aspire to, and that's how I come at it. I never look at a story and think, okay, what genre is this going to fit in?
Yeah.
I mean, when I'm writing a book and I know that I'm writing a Tracy Crosswhite, there are certain things that I have to do, the
Yeah.
pacing and all that, as opposed to if I'm writing a literary novel. But really, all I'm looking for is I'm looking for the story.
Hmm.
What's the story here? Is it a good story? Is it a compelling story? And if it is, then I figure that the genre will take care of itself.
So the latest one, Beyond Reasonable Doubt, is getting rave reviews, and I have some information about it here at my fingertips. But I wanted to just ask, what is it that led you to write this book, to be passionate about this new character in this new series?
So, I was looking for an idea, and I had one. I was really inspired by a gentleman that I golf with. Um, Dr. Dan, he's a doctor. He's had Parkinson's for 18 years. And he's out there, he's out there still golfing, still always in a good mood, and he's really just a pleasure to be around. He's an inspiration. And so I started thinking about, a company that was on the cutting edge of a major breakthrough in treating diseases like Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, dementia. And Dan put me on the path of a research that's being done in Ohio, where they are taking skin cells and through electrical charges, they have been able to change the skin cell at the nucleus level into other types of cells. So, for instance, they're using them to repair wounds, and they're able to repair wounds more quickly. The hope is the desire is that they would be able to change these skin cells into cells that produce dopamine, for instance, which is what people with Parkinson's start to lack.
Oh,
Skin cells that rejuvenate the brain to try to combat Alzheimer's and dementia. Skin cells that would go in and repair a heart
hmm.
that it has, begun to deteriorate. So there's just a whole host of potential, but it's not there yet. It's
Yeah.
on the cutting edge. And that's what I was really looking for was I wanted a company where someone is touting that they have the ability to do this, but they're not quite there yet, which happens a lot in tech companies in Silicon Valley, that whole fake it till you make it thing. And they either get caught that they're not there or something happens. And in my particular instance, someone dies. And the person that is running the corporation is accused of murder. Well, she also happens to be a childhood friend of Kira Dugan. And Kira is firmly convinced that this woman is a sociopath.
Oh, wow.
Now she has to defend basically a sociopath who's charged with murder.
Wow. Um, some people say you should write what you know. I mean, this is advice that's given to a lot of writers, especially when they get started. People say, write what you know. What's your take on that? Because it seems like you've written so many different, amazing stories in different genres that, obviously you have to be well versed in the language that you're writing in and so on. But what do you believe that, or do you have a different take on that advice?
I think it's incredibly limiting,
Yeah.
incredibly boring. I honestly think write what you're interested in.
Yeah.
If nobody, I just wrote a book called Hold Strong, 1947 World War II book about Japanese hell ships. I don't know anything about them,
Yeah.
but the two guys that I wrote the book with who did the research, I mean, they spent 10 years researching this. They know it better than anyone out there right now. They didn't serve in World War II. They've never served in the military, as far as I know. So they're not writing about what they know, right? They are researching what they're interested in.
Yeah,
So, I think that I think while the the premise of that statement, right, what is accurate, I don't think there's exceptions to it,
sure.
obviously.
Yeah,
And you can become an expert on just about anything.
yeah. I know I've written, books where I'm a teenage girl. Well, the main character is a teenage girl or a psychopath or serial killer, FBI agent. It's like, I don't remember being any of those things. You try to
Yeah,
do your best to be honest
yeah,
with the character.
yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And I know there's a little bit of pushback about that. It started with the book American Dirt. You shouldn't write about a culture that you don't know about, et cetera. And again, I think that I've written about an African American man,
Hmm.
Charles Jenkins,
Yeah,
espionage. Well, how did I write about him? Well, because I didn't say to myself, "Oh, I have to write like a black person."
yeah,
No, that's I write like a human being. I write like a person who is writing about a character that has all the same foibles that we all have.
yeah,
That is wants all the things that we want. Just happens to be a person of color.
yeah,
So while there are certain things that I think you have to be sensitive to, for the most part, I'm just trying to write from the perspective of a human being.
yeah. I like it. So, what are some of the things for you that make a story really work, really thrum or whatever? Whether it's a story you're reading from someone else or one that you're writing, where you're like, oh, I can feel like this is like moving on all cylinders, moving forward.
Well, I think you said it, right? First of all, is it a good story?
Yeah,
Is there a good story here? Is there a character that I can identify with? Is there a character that interests me that makes me go, huh, what is going on here? What is this person looking for? Why are they looking for it? And that it just begins to sort of unfold, like a flower in spring opening, it just begins to unfold and you begin to take in more and more information. So, I think every story has to have conflict to move
yeah,
it forward. But that can be a number of different types of conflict. It can be physical conflict. It can be psychological conflict. It can be romantic conflict. Anything that just keeps the story moving forward. And I think the biggest mistake that we all make
yeah,
is when the character stops doing things, doing and saying things,
yeah,
and the character is just sitting and contemplating and wondering, right? There's nothing happening on the page. So, I know you and I always talk about when we're, working with our students in the novel writing intensive, we're always talking about keeping the story moving,
yeah.
keeping the story going forward by keeping the characters in action.
I've used your advice on that sometimes as I'm working on a book, or even, as I'm coaching other authors, I'll say like, just get them moving, literally. Just get them on a horse and at least go somewhere, do
Yeah,
something instead of
yeah,
just sitting around. What's the saying? We some bog sat, bunch of guys or bunch of girls sitting around talking, bog sat. Like remove bog sat from your stories. And it's one of the things I like about your books. You don't have that. It's like you have movement, you have intrigue, you have mystery, but you also have this very human angle. So talk about that for just a minute. You've written, a lot of police procedurals, mysteries in this, but it's not just about solving a case. What is that extra element that you try to really weave in as far as the characters and relationships that make it so human and lead so many people to love your stories?
Well, you and I know each other very well. So, and I've always talked about this, later in my life, I had a stroke, and one of the uh, physical results from that is, I'm a guy that suffers with anxiety now. It's not debilitating, but it exists. It's out there. Well, that I think makes me human.
Yeah,
When I go to talk to classes, and I'll be talking to a class of 60, and I'll talk about their characters and what makes their characters human. And everyone wants to say, "Oh, well, he's an alcoholic." Well, let's try to think of something that maybe is, a little bit more universal. Not that alcoholism is not a serious, issue and
sure.
problem to be dealt with, but I think there's far more people out there that deal with things like, anxiety, OCD, depression, all those things that make us human. There are very few superheroes in this world. I have yet to meet anyone that wasn't dealing with something.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really important that your characters, have to deal with things, they're not perfect. They make mistakes. I'm learning as a father, now that my kids are grown. I made mistakes when my kids were growing up. I did my best,
Hmm.
but I did make mistakes, and I always apologized to them when I made mistakes, and I always told them when I made a mistake because I wanted them to know that it's okay to
Hmm.
not be perfect. It's okay to make mistakes, to be human. And I think that's really important for our characters as well. They're not perfect.
Yeah.
They shouldn't be perfect anyway.
Now, one of the things I've heard you talk about too is that we want to read about extraordinary characters. Like, so on the one hand, we want to identify with them. And they need to be, characters that, like just what you said, we can empathize with, and they're not perfect in every way. But usually there's something different or unique, extraordinary about a character. They're very empathetic or strong or clever, brave, whatever it might be. What's your take? How do you do that? Like, how do you have a character who's both admirable and vulnerable and bring those together?
So what I always look for is I always try to make the character a little bit better than everyone else at what she's good at.
Hmm.
So for Kira Dugan, for instance, in this legal thriller series, she's just really intuitive, really smart. She's a child chess prodigy.
Oh,
She
wow.
can so she can read people. She reads their emotions. She's quick on her feet. She's just really good at what she does.
Yeah.
But she also has limitations, and those limitations stem from her family's dysfunction.
Hmm.
She drinks a little bit too much, but not that it's not bad. She has self-doubt. She has never had really a serious relationship because she has trouble getting close to people. So I always say to our students who we work with is
Yeah.
I say, people don't want to read about ordinary people doing ordinary things. That's boring. They
Hmm.
want to read about ordinary people doing extraordinary things or who are thrust into extraordinary circumstances, or they want to read about extraordinary people doing extraordinary things. But those are rare people, right? That's Mahatma Gandhi, Mother Teresa, Jesus Christ. Most of us are ordinary people who have to do something outside of our comfort zone, either because we have to get someplace, we have to help someone, whatever that is. And
Yeah.
that's where the stories come in. And then, depending on the genre that you're writing in, you just have to manipulate that whatever that task is, to make them what they are. If you want to create James Bond, that's fine. Create James Bond. If you want to create Jack Reacher, create Jack Reacher. I tend to create characters that are not quite at that level. They're more at the level that all of us are at, where they're very good at something, but they have their limitations that they also have to deal with.
No, that's great. And so, just to encourage people who are listening or reading this interview, Beyond Reasonable Doubt is Robert Dugoni's latest book. It's not the first in this series, though. Would you recommend that people start with the first book in this series, or just dive in right here with Beyond Reasonable Doubt and move forward from there?
Yeah, again, this is something that you and I talk about all the time with students who say they're writing a series, and I say maybe not, you know, and it's harsh, and you don't mean it to be harsh, but if your first book doesn't work, nobody's going to ask you for a second book in that series. So, yes, you can read this book as a standalone. Every one of my books has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It has a journey that concludes, that has some satisfying ending. Not necessarily happy, but a satisfying ending. At the same time, if you like to see the way a character progresses, if you like to see the way that the world in which the character lives progresses, by all means, start with her deadly game. Start at the beginning. Right now. There's only two books in the series. I'm just turning in the third book, so you're not far behind. It's not like Game of Thrones where you have to watch
Yeah.
70 episodes to get to the end.
Well, that's fantastic. So, well, anyway, congrats on the new book,
Thank you.
and I know people will love it. I love all the books that I have of yours on my shelves in the back here. I've enjoyed and always enjoy catching up with you. So, is there a place online you'd like to direct people before we close up, wherever they might find out about your speaking engagements, your books, new releases?
Yeah, I mean, you can go to my website, which is www.robertdugonibooks.com. I have a newsletter on there that people can sign up for to get sort of the latest information. I don't put out a lot of newsletters, I just don't have time. But the latest information, when a new book is coming out, where I might be speaking, that kind of information. I'm also on all the social media handles. If you look up author Robert Dugoni on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, I'm on all those sites as well.
Well, fantastic. So everyone check out Bob's new book, and thanks again for sitting down and chatting with us a little bit about your latest. Her, or, I almost said the other one, her daily, but Beyond Reasonable Doubt. Thanks, Bob.
Thanks, Stephen. My pleasure.